The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the official positions of the sponsors, advertisers, or presenters. Advertising does not imply endorsement by the sponsors and presenters.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another fantastic episode of the Lighting Controls podcast. Before we jump into everything and tell you about this week's guest, let me just take a second to remind everyone that today's episode is presented by the LCA, the Lighting Controls Association, and it's also financially supported by NAILD, the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors.
And if you can't get enough lighting controls talk and all the good stuff that this industry has to offer, you should check out NYC Controlled, happening next week on the 14th of November. McWong Inc., our lovely sponsor for today, will be there as well, so you should check out their booth. But also, we want to give a huge thanks to our sponsor, McWong. Check them out, McWongInc.com. That's their website. They have great resources. I was just checking out today. They have great design guides to help walk you through a specification for a project. They really want to make sure that their projects, from a lighting control standpoint, are taken care of. You're taken care of as a designer, as an owner, whatever you need. They're based here in the U.S. They have great support. They've been in the business for years now. And one of the great things that we're talking about today is that they are a winner of an L Prize Award. And so today we have a special guest from McWong with us today, Stephen Zhou. Stephen, do you mind just giving us a quick breakdown on who you are and what you do?
Well, thank you. Thank you both today for getting on your podcast. I'm a big fan of you and I get Group Lightings and a big supporter. You bring really, really good interviews in the past. So my name is Stephen Zhou. I'm the Executive Vice President for McWong International. We have been in business for 40 years. We were participating in the L Prize about 2 years, starting about almost 2 years ago, and we were one of the winners of the L Prize. And like you said, next week I will be in New York for the NY Control shows, and the McWong booth is number 3. I'm looking forward to meeting people there.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today. I mean, all of that McWong is doing right now is really fantastic for our industry. Really, you're doing a lot of trend setting, as you have been, as McWong has been doing for years now. But I think this L Prize is a really good highlight to what McWong is really trying to strive for. And so I was just curious if you wouldn't mind giving us a little idea of what it's like to go through getting an L Prize.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's definitely is a very big challenge for us. But also, what else prize is what we're looking for? Really, the technology we're working with for the last couple of years. So McWong, for a very long time, has been supplying components for LED manufacturers. We started getting into wireless lighting control about 10 years ago, and very quickly we realized there's so many different technology out there. They don't really talk to each other, right? For end users, if you're a building owner, you get into a system and you're kind of stuck with that system. I remember I was at the DLC meeting last year, and one of the facility managers from one of the university, I believe is either Harvard or MIT, he mentioned, I have 25 different lighting control systems in my campus. I have to support it, right? So McWong, from the very start, when we get into the lighting control field, we are a big supporter and proponent of standard-based lighting control. And that's exactly what L Prize is looking for, right? They look for technology that is interoperable, that's based on standards like Bluetooth NLCs, Zagas, Dalis. So that's been our focus on our product roadmap and our technology. And so we will learn about this L Prize. We are very excited. So we start looking into the detailed requirements. It's really aligned with what we are looking for. So we put together a team. Of course, this really expedite our product developments, because now you have a deadline you have to meet, and on the other hand, of course you have a prize you can win. So for the last 16 months, the team has been working very, very hard to put together these submissions, and we're very happy that we are one of the winners. So that's a very, very good experience for us.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and I think that that's a really important thing to note here about the L Prize is that it's not just sort of like a hand stamp. Okay, you've won a prize. You know, it really is an effort to get an L Prize, and additionally, it's a representation of core values when it comes to lighting control solutions that are typical topics that come up on this podcast on a regular basis. You know, interoperability, standards, all of that is really good to know about, that these sorts of things exist out there to really incentivize this sort of approach to lighting controls design and infrastructure. So, you know, from that, you know, what was it, do you think, that made McWong that much more ahead of the other competitors with the L Prize?
Well, L Prize is looking for technical interoperabilities, right? Application interoperabilities on top of traditional lighting controls, right? So our Bluetooth system can, TrueBlue technology partner, Silver, can do the traditional function of a lighting control system. You can do zoning, you can do occupancy, daylight-based dimmings, you can do scheduling, but there's more to lighting than just energy savings today. We have been in light LEDs for more than a decade. An LED light source is digital, and that requires the control to be digital. Like today in the US market, we still use a 0 to 10, which is a one-way analog controls. So the LED sees the huge potential of using lighting fixtures. I call it as a base station for tied to a more function beyond lightings. That's what L Price is, right? Not only you have to do all those lighting control, you have to report energy data, you have to provide a full condition report, you have to have the capability to do demand responses. All those require advanced components. But more importantly, we need to make sure that these components come from different manufacturers, can work together. Otherwise, we all get locked into one system. There's many horror story of that, right? I mean, one of that is at schools and they can't turn the lights off because the company's gone and nobody knows how to operate the system. Yep. That's why these L prices ask for a technology that is advanced, but also interoperable. That's what makes this very exciting, and that has been a core focus for McWong for the last 10 years. We were one of the first one to jump on that when Bluetooth Match came around. We are a regular member of DALI, and we are on the DALI North American promotional groups and try to let people know how the DALI works and how valuable those data is coming out of the DALI system. And we are also one of the early adopter of Zaga standard, which really also specify the mechanical interoperabilities. So all this actually is embodied in this L prices. So that's what we were able to really work along our core values, and at the same time we can participate in this L prices.
Yeah, so I mean, really to kind of distill that down, what it sounds like put McWong ahead of other people is that you have these capacities outside of just lighting controls, but it's also analysis and interoperability with other systems, and the fact that you rely on standardized protocols as opposed to a homebrew protocol. So, you know, that being the case, I mean, it's a pretty good argument that, you know, McWong really is kind of leading the charge when it comes to the values that L Prize is seeking out.
Exactly. I think that we have to understand that all these standards coming up an organization, nonprofit organization that have hundreds, some of them even tens of thousands memberships, right? So those organized, like Bluetooth, have 50,000 member companies coming from telecoms, computers, lightings, and all the field. So all the standards this organization came up with, they have a lot of brain power behind it, right? And the resources they can put together from the member company is no private company can compete with. So the technology came out of this standard is just superb. That's why we are always a big proponent and also active participant in the process of the standards, right? That's what really separates us apart from a lot of other manufacturers. Is we are really focused on standard-based interoperable technology for lighting controls, and also in the future go beyond lighting controls.
Right, which is an ongoing conversation in a lot of these conferences right now. I mean, Gary Meshberg and I did several presentations last year at Light Fair on the subject of thinking beyond lighting controls, and I think that really is the next frontier when it comes to these solutions. But as taking that in mind, are you seeing market trends that indicate that there's demand for this? Because there's definitely a lot of argument to be made from a manufacturer's standpoint, but from a demand standpoint, from an end user standpoint, is this also something that you're seeing being asked for? And is it that we're creating a bespoke solution for that as well?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. So I have been to many trade shows, conference, the IES, the NAMCO, the NIASCO, the Lifers, the Light and Bills. So that's what we keep hearing from our customers, right? Lighting control, if you can put a lighting control when you retrofit a light, that's where when you want to do it, right? The second part is when you retrofit a light with the lighting controls, you want to make sure it's future-proofed. You don't have to go back in 5 years to rip out the system and put another system in. And if we do those, the other part that I hear a lot of people talk about is the cost of the system. If we really can have interoperable systems, then the cost will naturally come down because more and more people can jump on the wagon, and along the way, you go see a lot of component suppliers that supply the standard-based, and that will drive down the cost. The wireless lighting control business has been out there for many, many years, but we really see an increased adoption of that. And also there's a lot of rebate coming out of utility right now because the LED rebate is pretty much gone, to put it that way, but a lot of utilities are seeking more ways to incentivize energy savings and other features. And so we see rapid growth of lighting controls. And wireless is really make a lot of sense, right? Labor saving and all that thing. And the L price, especially the focus on the data of the system, in large project, you already see that, right? There's a lot of BarkNet system out there that can work with other systems. And in Europe, it's dominant. I mean, all the drivers over there is digital driver dollies. So we do see, not today, but in the future, there's a huge demand from the marketplace for such technology. Just for example, I was at the NAMCO annual conference 2 weeks ago at Palm Springs. So for lighting maintenance companies, right, before the LED, their business model is go in and replace fluorescent lamps, HID lamps every 2 years, 3 years. And then the LED came along, we do the LED retrofit. But what after that, right? Well, what if you already retrofit LED? What is the business model for them? It's really to help the building owner to manage the lighting and beyond, right? If you can get all the data there, the space utilizations, energy saving, or use the lighting as a hub to control HVACs, and you can do preventive maintenance. You can know where the driver fails, and all those are very, very valuable data that for company like lighting maintenance company, they can build a business case around it. We have been talking about lighting as a service for a very long time, right? But I think it's time that we can go back and kind of redefine that. In the old days, lighting as a service, I come in every 2 years to replace your fluorescent lamps. I have a little calendar. Okay, I come Now, 2 years now, I'm going to come to this
Yep.
building. Today, you look at the dashboard, you look at the hundreds and tens of building you manage. Okay, I have 3 failed driver there and 5 failed driver over there. There's an issue on there. I can use those data really to help to schedule maintenance around the lighting system. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned interoperability a bunch of times, and I know I heard a lot of people's ears perk up when you mentioned cost savings and down the road, right? Like, so I guess a big question, because that's always such a big thing, is why is my lighting system so expensive? And a lot of that currently is because systems are proprietary, right? So we've
Correct.
talked a lot about interoperability, and you're very focused on that with Bluetooth and everything else. So how do you see a road path? What is the path to potentially get to a point where we have systems that are truly interoperable that will help, customers see a decreased cost in lighting controls, so we see better implementation in the field?
That's a very good question. I think number one, we have to go out and tell the story to up down the train of lighting. We have to talk to designer. We have to talk to engineers. We have to educate the building owners, and also we have to work with our distributor and contractor, make sure they understand how the product is wired and commissioned. And we have to, as lighting control manufacturer, we have to work very closely with our lighting fixture OEMs, manufacturers who incorporate those devices into their fixtures. So I think education is probably one of the most important things we need to do. So let people know there is such technology out there. There is such benefit out there. That's why we have this Great Reef Lighting podcast, right? That's why LCA is pushing very hard, and we are a member of LCA also. So first, it's really education. The second part, we really need to show them the technology works. I think the DOE price is a good example. So DOE see the values, and they come in, they do a competition, and the next phase they're going to do a demo case to showcase that the technology does work. Number two, the technology does save cost and bring a lot of benefit. So that also need the whole effort from everyone, not only just from the DOE, the DLC is very interested in it. Of course, all the standard organizations are very interesting. And if we get those messages out into the right channel, I believe people will see the benefit and will see more adoption. The more adoptions, the lower the cost, right? I didn't buy the LED light bulb. I know it's good at the very beginning when they cost $15, right? Now until the utilities and the manufacturer team together with the OEs have some incentive, the volume goes up. Now today, it'll cost you more to buy a non-LED light bulb than an LED light bulbs. And I believe that will happen in the lighting controls in the not too far futures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so, just kind of looking at it from the perspective, I mean, we haven't really mentioned that, most of McWong products are wireless controlled, wireless protocols. And so, there's definitely still a lot of outliers out there who are saying, wireless is not really the future, or I don't really ascribe to wireless. But there is a huge adoption now over the last 5 years. I would say that we've seen a significant increase in adoption for wireless. And so I'm curious from your perspective, to those people who are still holding on to a wired solution, what is the argument to be made there that they should let go of that idea?
Well, I don't believe the wired solution will be completely gone. I mean, there's always applications that require a wired systems. I think the hesitation we hear from the market, there's a couple. One is security, right? Everyone feel that the wired system is more secure than the wireless system. Well, not necessary, right? Our bank get hacked all the time. It's not through wireless, it's through the wires, right?
Sure.
And so,
or the human error.
And the human errors, right? So the wireless technology has been proven in the past 10, 15 years, they can be as secure as the wire systems, right? So that concept has been accepted more and more by the customers. We live in a wireless world every day. We're surrounded by all the way, the Wi-Fi, the Zigbee, the Bluetooth, the cellulars, right? So that that's really good for the industry, and people start accepting more that wireless as secure as a wire system. The second concern people have is interference between the wireless devices, lighting devices, and other devices. They have been interference in the past, right? That's when you develop technology, everybody jumping on the same bandwidth and didn't realize, okay, my bandwidth will interfere with your bandwidth. That's what's good about Bluetooth technology, because Bluetooth look at their 2.4 gig and make sure that, okay, my signals is not going to interfere with the Wi-Fi or vice versa, or my signal is not going to interfere with Zigbee, vice versa, to make sure that you avoid the collision of message in the airs, which will cause interference. So those are the two main concerns I see. And a lot of people already see the benefit of going wireless. I mean, you really save a lot of labor running the low voltage control wires, right? Not only the labor saving, but just the wire cost today, it is expensive. Yeah, really expensive. And also the big push of L price was what we call luminary level lighting control. So you embedded the lighting control nodes in the fixture itself. So all you need to attach is the power. You don't have to run any extra wires. So those are all the benefit of wireless lighting control, and hope this message can be heard by more people. As you say, we see a huge growth of wireless lighting control in the past few years.
But I think
the cost of that come down too, right? I mean,
oh, absolutely.
Today's cost with 5 years ago, the cost come down quite a bit. Yeah.
Well, and also designing a Bluetooth mesh system, for instance, is a lot easier than it used to be with a Wi-Fi gateway style wireless solution.
Yep. Exactly.
So there's a lot of hurdles that we've overcome over the last few years. But I'm curious. It was I agree with you that there still is going to be a place for wired lighting controls, and I don't think that will ever go away either. I just feel as though there are people who look at lighting controls as one or the other and then just stick with it. And I would say that can be really a disastrous mentality of, I'm always going to use this no matter what the application is, or I'm always going to use that no matter what the application is. And so, from a custom tailored approach that McWong usually applies to its projects, I mean, do you see a lot of that where people are just sort of like, just give me like the general, the basic, or the copy paste version that I can use?
Well, we do see that. I think we'll get a code like this is the room-based control with wires, and can you cross it over? The good news is they are open to wireless. Otherwise, they won't give us a chance, right? Sure. And we can always demonstrate to them that, okay, not only we can cross over the functionality of what they do, but we can add all this benefit. And in a lot of time, we found people is very receptive to that, right? But there's always people have that mentality. Okay, it's not just. I mean, sometimes people have the initial. They don't want to get into the new stuff because it's not. They never used it before, or they're not sure whether or not it works. But hey, we are adventurous human beings, right? We have to explore new technology all along with our histories. Otherwise, there's no advancements in technology. So I truly hope those people who still kind of draw down on the wire system need to pay a little bit more attention to how the wireless has come along for these years and all the benefit it brings, not only to them as a designer and engineer, but really to the end users. Right after COVID, we see this huge trend of working from home, mixed modes, hybrid mode, which means your future office need to be very adaptive. The only way you can make that happen is really wireless, right? I mean, imagine you have to rewire an office, just put a partition and rewire everything. That cost is tremendously expensive. But if
Yeah,
with,
and
with
I think
our
that's
system, yeah,
it speaks a lot to retrofits too, right? I mean, there's a
right,
huge benefit to the idea of even a hybrid system, right, where you're utilizing IT infrastructure that already exists to sort of be the backbone throughout the building,
right.
regardless if it's a skyscraper or whatever it is, and then use wireless from there in a retrofit application to not have to tear down walls, run new wire, try and
Oh,
figure out wire paths, right? So there's a huge
exactly.
application for that. And people need to
Huge,
understand that
huge.
it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can have a hybrid system and get the best of both worlds.
Exactly. Especially in, I think wireless make a lot more sense in the retrofit, as you said. We had dimming balance since we have the LEDs, right, dimming drivers. But at the very beginning, very people really utilize that dimming capability because there's just no way in a retrofit project to spend the money to run all those low voltage wire from fixture to fixture to fixture. With wireless, you don't have that concern anymore, right? Even in new construction, people say, well, that's not a concern on new construction. We can run wire. But keep in mind, the wire cost is very expensive now,
Mm-hmm.
right? The copper and everything. And also, you limit the future adaptability of the building if you still specify a wire system. What if 5 years down the road, this building say, okay, I'm going to reconfigure the spaces for a different purpose? If you spec in the wire system at the very beginning, then that whole retrofit become a lot more expensive down the road. With wireless,
Yep.
remember that's virtual, right? You can dice up the spaces any way you want it. Without rewiring anything. Just take out your phones and just move them around.
Well, so that kind of gives me a question. If you had a magic wand and you could just like change anything about our industry or anything about capabilities with lighting controls, I mean, what would you want to have happen?
Well, I wish I have a magic wand. The problem, I don't think anyone have one, right? Otherwise, we're not
Unfortunate.
sitting here today still talking about lighting control, which should be on every project, by the way, in my mind. I think the magic wand is the still going back to my concept. So everyone in the, I call it food chain, right? From the bottom is our like us, lighting control manufacturer, OEM fixtures,
Mm-hmm.
luminaire manufacturers. We have to understand why lighting control is important, right? Then we need to understand that the owner understand who really use the system, why lighting control is important, and also those people who design the system and who put the system together for the owners, who are the bridge between the manufacturers and the end users. So we again going back to education. I think that's probably the magic wand is if everybody realize how many benefit is and it become a no-brainer,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, just the education process sometimes is long and tedious.
And
Um,
so, I mean, prodding a little bit further on that, I mean, do you see any paths forward? Because it seems as though there's plenty of resources out there for people to learn. There's also a high demand for learning, but there just doesn't seem to be an intermingling between those resources and the people who want to learn.
right. Well, number one, I think I always believe a private and public partnerships is probably work the best. Just think about how LED really taking off, right? If there's no incentive, it probably take another 5, 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important for the government, like Department of Energy, in the state level, there's energy commissions and the utility companies, and they're the leading the fields. If they can put together a program to incentivize people to put on advanced lighting control system to reduce their initial cost, I think that will be very beneficial to the whole industry. Number two, I see a lot of cooperation between the different organizations now. I think the DLC play a great roles there and can continue to play great roles in lighting controls, lighting control associations, and also the NAMCO, the NIASCOs, the IALDs, IES. I hear a lot from them about the benefit. We just have to go out more and tell this to the really the end user. I don't think the end user has get that message as we hope yet, and that's something we need to work together. On every trade show, on every get together, we need to emphasize the benefit of that.
Yeah, I think you're right. There does seem to be a disconnect, especially at the local level, between the end users and the utilities. Right, and there was such a big push. Right when everyone went, I mean, even CFLs, everyone remembers there was some local state organization knocking on your door to change over your lamps, and they were going to give them to you for free. Now, this isn't the same exact idea, but there needs to be some more buy-in from the local state agencies between them and end users and the building owners to create that adoption. Because you're right, there's a ton of resources, like Webster mentioned. There's a ton of resources. And who's consuming those resources? It's people like us. And that's great, but it's not necessarily getting to the end users. And if we're going to see change and adoption in the industry, it's going to be driven by consumer demand. And if that doesn't get pushed from the end users and through the state and local level, we're not going to see any dramatic change, like you mentioned, Stephen, anytime soon. It's going to be another 5, 10, 15 years.
Right. That's why I think a shift to focus more on lighting control on the DLC side is a good approach. Of course, we need to make sure that the manufacturers are on board and everyone, the utilities on board. I do see a lot of utilities start putting out more rebates on lighting controls. Both West Coast, East Coast, and they're moving to that directions. The consumer need to see the benefit. That's absolutely true. But sometimes consumer might not see the benefit until they use it. Right. That's why we have people knocking on the door, giving out the CFL because, what's CFL? I'm like this incandescent warm colors, until they see the bills. Oh yeah, that saves me a lot of money. That makes a lot of sense, right? So again, as an industry, we need to push for that. A control manufacturer has been on the leading edge of it, along with the DOE, the LCs. I think the lighting fixture the luminary manufacturer also realized that too. That's very good. But we just need to get a message to more of the lighting maintenance company, the building owners, the real end users. Let them see the benefit and give them there's a lot of case studies. There's a lot of publication out there. If people are willing to learn, there's a lot of information out there. But I still believe that putting some incentive at the beginnings is very important, right? That will incentivize the user, but not only incentivize the user, but also incentivize more manufacturers to jump into and then the cost will naturally come down, right?
What kind of incentives are you envisioning? I mean, I know we talked about DOE's L Prize and we've talked about a couple of other things, but I mean, is there something that's currently not being incentivized that probably should be?
Well, I think some of the incentives that around the lighting control is not number one. I don't think it's still not very prevalent yet. Not like at the higher the LEDs, almost you can get a free LED light put in your warehouse for free.
Right.
I think that there's a misconception that lighting is done from the energy saving perspective. But keep in mind, when we push for electrification of the whole society, any additional savings of energies will be very helpful. Right, even say from 50 watt to 25 watt,
right?
That's very helpful.
Right, and so squeezing every little drop out of the building as you can.
Right, and also going back to there's the light is everywhere. So lighting fixtures or poles for outdoor fixture indoor, it's a very good um, base station, a power source that you can tap into, not adding another layer of infrastructure for advanced technology, like what we mentioned, the space utilization, the asset tracking, and all those other benefits that can really, in long term, help the building owner save a lot of cost.
Hmm. And so I guess, I feel a lot of designers right now, whispering in my ear, basically saying, hey, wait a second, how many projects are actually using this? How many facilities managers are actually being trained in this and being able to manage it and utilize it to its full potential? And while you're right, there's tons of case studies out there and definitely worth looking into, especially those people who are naysaying this. But, just curious what your argument is if you hear that, where it's like, I don't think anybody's going to use this.
Well, I think actually, to the contrary. I mean, I think both you and I see there's a huge growth of wireless lighting control in the last 5 years. And today, a lot of the projects have that requirements, either hard requirement or soft requirement. Sometimes the lighting control get taken out of the project is because of the cost, right? We hear a lot of, okay, well, everyone like to have it, but when you present a number, people back off. I think for us, if we need to, number one, as a manufacturer, we need to make sure that number isn't too outrageous. So the owners say, oh, no, I'll never put that money. And second is really to tell them the benefit, the returns, right? I mean, there's if you spend extra $20,000-$30,000 for 100,000, 150,000 project on lighting controls, what will be the benefit you have? So I think as the lighting designer, need to understand that part of the equation and also because it's really your guys out there talking to the owner all the times, right? So you have to tell them what are the benefits of adding extra lighting control will have in the long run and will be returns on those.
Right. So, I mean, basically, we need adoption within our own industry, within our own designers.
Yeah.
We need to have that acknowledgement of, yeah, this is a benefit, and people can take advantage of it if they know how to do it.
Right.
And so
Right.
I guess there's a level of Ludditism when it comes to the people who are saying, oh, nobody's ever going to use this. But I think,
Right.
again, we have seen it. We're consistently seeing it being utilized.
Oh, people want to use it. People definitely want to use it, right? If you can dim your light up and down, you can change colors, you can save more energy, you can occupancy all those. I think people like it. I mean, it's always this perception of they're very costly, they're very complicated. I think the technology today, like the Bluetooth technology today, it already take those some of those concerns out of the equation, right? The cost, as I said, will keep going down. And the complexity is definitely not there anymore. With our True Blue system, you can have an expert in-house design hundreds of project across the country, and all the contractor need to do just go in, take out their phone, and the devices to the right places. And so that makes the whole process a lot more smooth for the user. And after the system set up, normally you don't have to touch it anymore, right? They work autonomously. That's the beauty of lighting control systems.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, we're almost out of time here, but I just want to, package all of this that we've talked about. I think it's really fascinating stuff. Especially, it's great to have a manufacturer on the show to really talk about their product, because we get a lot of designers and a lot of people out in the field who have opinions about manufacturers, but really, going to the source and getting their input is just as beneficial. So really appreciate you coming on, but really, the sum of it is that when it comes to lighting controls as it stands right now, there is an incentive to try and improve not just lighting control capabilities, but capabilities outside of lighting controls. Some people refer to it as the digital ceiling, where you have the lighting as the backbone to everything, but there's more functionality than just the lighting control. And so, there needs to be much more education out there, or at least education initiatives. We've got plenty of information out there, but it's just not being tapped into in a way that's efficient and progressive for us. So, getting people who are either unaware of or just resistant to the adoption of lighting controls, but not just lighting controls, but wireless lighting controls, because wireless lighting controls really has an additional layer of capability and cost effectiveness that wired lighting controls may or may not have in a lot of cases. Right. So really looking holistically at your lighting controls design with the idea of wireless can be a part of this too, or be the main control system for this, rather than, maybe we'll just keep that for the back of house spaces, or we're just doing no wireless whatsoever. But I think, again, highlighting McWong's capabilities with the L Prize, really is ahead of a lot of other manufacturers when it comes to that, as well as, the open standards and interoperability really gives a flexibility that a proprietary system may not have. Now, there's plenty of arguments to be made for proprietary systems versus open systems, but, really the focus here is that when you have an open system like this, you really can kind of build your system custom tailored to whatever the system design you want. And so as a result, you're really hyper focused on what the end use criteria is, as opposed to, we have this list of capabilities. It's like, no. Like, right. How does it all want to work? And then additionally, right. You're really trying to find ways to make it easier for installation.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, going back to the three standards that the L Prize is emphasized on, and manufacturers, lighting control manufacturer can focus on even any one of those will be great, right? The mechanical interoperability on a Book 20 sensor, if it's transfers, it doesn't matter if it's from McWong's wireless Bluetooth system or from Lutron's system. If everybody have the same form factor, that makes things a lot more easier, right? Everybody like the NEMA socket on top of the lighting fixture because that's the standard, and you can put different people's control devices on top of that. That's the Zaga concept, right? The communication between the drivers and the controls, right? Either wireless control or wired control. That again is huge, right? So you can speak to a driver with one language. And as to the wireless part, there will be spaces for both proprietary and open standards, right? I'm not saying the open standard going to take over the world. No, there's always going to be proprietary and open standards. But open standard have a lot of advantage over proprietary, right? As I mentioned, it's combined with the brain from all the company that inside that organization, right? There's a lot of brain power behind it, and you don't have to worry about you get stuck with one particular manufacturers. You can always have the choice of choosing from different manufacturers.
For sure.
Yeah, Stephen, it's all great points, and we could easily keep going and keep going, but we're always happy to have you back on another time. But Stephen, thank you so much. And you did mention one thing that was, I think, a lot of people. You mentioned that there are people, and there are still end users out there who think lighting's done. They don't think about controls. They think, oh, I have LED. What else do I need? And then you said the word electrification, and that's a whole nother episode on its own.
That's a whole other thing. Yeah.
You bring up a great point that electrification is really going to drive controls. The reason people need controls because we are going to need every ounce of energy out of every building, out Correct. Of every city in order to make this adoption to electrification. And again, that's a whole other episode, and we'll get into that another time. But there's a lot.
I would love to talk about. Yeah. Even in California, people think lighting is done. No, lighting is not done. Still, 50% of the building is not being retrofitted to LED yet, right? That's a huge spaces for improved energy efficiency. And if we can add those lighting control just for the remaining 50% of the building alone, gonna save you a lot of energy.
Yep,
A lot of
absolutely.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Stephen, thank you so much for coming on again. Really appreciate it. And I just want to take a minute to remind everyone that today's episode is presented by the LCA, the Lighting Controls Association, and financially supported by NAILD, the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors.
And again, if you can't get enough of us or lighting controls talk and lingo, come check out NYC Controlled. It's going to be in New York City, November 14th. We'll have a link in the description. But come check it out. Check out McWong's booth, number 3, I believe Stephen said. And also check out my presentation and the several other presentations that are happening. We've got great speakers happening at this show. So really, you should come down and check it out if you love lighting controls. And then again, thank you to McWong for sponsoring this episode and sponsoring the podcast regularly. You know, it's a really great resource. But additionally, we wouldn't just accept a sponsorship from anybody. We really pride ourselves on being choosy on high quality lighting control solutions that we can really be proud about and talk really highly about. And so definitely check out McWong if you're unfamiliar with this brand. They're a really great resource, really leading the charge in a lot of ways when it comes to lighting controls. Check out their website, McWongInc.com. They've got great resources, great products, really worth your time to check it out. But until then, thank you so much for joining us here today. And Stephen, thank you so much. This was a great conversation.